Welcome to Conversation with Miss B. Feel free to follow and subscribe. Don't forget to like. Let's have a conversation. Let's have a conversation. Let's have a conversation. Let's have a conversation. Hey, let's have a conversation. Hey, let's have a conversation.
Hi guys, and welcome to Conversations with Miss B, with myself, Bongi Miss B. Wow, we come from an amazing month of January, a month where we focused on manifestations, vision boarding, really all the tools that you need to equip yourself to have a great and amazing 2023. Of course, we started off talking about gratitude, how you can incorporate principles of gratitude into your everyday life to ensure that you really kick off the year on that mode of thankfulness. You'll be so surprised what a bit of gratitude can do for your life. And then we covered vision boarding tools there. We always hear about vision boarding, but what is it really, and how do we ensure that we are successful with that tool? And then we spoke to Coach Bu Sikubuli. She told us about coaching and mentoring and how we can use that in order to ensure that we also have a successful year. I mean, we always need these tools. We always need someone who's walked the road, someone who can assist us going forward. Life is full of ups and downs. And last week, we ended the month off with Coach Maria McAndrew, and she spoke about the power of the superconscious mind. Of course, we really could not unpack everything, and we're hoping to have her back as she actually is going to tell us about the next level of consciousness, which is the divine intelligence. Really powerful stuff, something you don't want to miss. Please do like and subscribe, follow our pages on all the social media networks, that is on Instagram, on Facebook, as well as on YouTube. At Conversations with Ms. B is our handle. Please do support our work. We are a non-profit organization really aimed at empowering, uplifting the community through these dialogue sessions and other initiatives we do. So your encouragement through liking, sharing, and commenting and subscribing to our channels goes a long way. Well, today is the month of February. Welcome to what is coined as the month of love. 14th of February, which is Valentine's Day, is coming through very soon. The day of lovers. You've got Cupid, you've got hearts, you've got roses and chocolate all around already. You can already smell it in the air. So we really have coined this month or themed this month as the month of relationships, marriage. So we're talking about sex, we're talking about intimacy, and all things surrounding that. So you really want to like our pages so that you can get a update of our schedule. And today, well, our first guest on this Tuesday is going to be a very prolific speaker. He's a gentleman. I think it's the first gentleman we're having on the show this year. So very interesting conversation we're going to have with I Am Kelvin, and he is the founder of a nonprofit organization called the League of Honor, and it's really an organization that puts together men, the minds of men, and talks about these conversations, much of what we'll also be talking and touching on today. He is also an events organizer and recently has done an event called Mjolo the Pandemic. Very interesting conversations about relationships. And today we'll be talking about something very, very similar to that. He's also an information scientist by profession, as well as a speaker. And he is joining us today. Mr. Kelvin, welcome to Conversations with Ms. B.
Thank you. Me.
Great. And of course, our topic today is very, very interesting. We're talking about relationships specifically finding love in this modern society. I'm sure you would agree with me. Times have changed. I don't know what era you were born in, but I'm an 80s baby. And certainly I can tell you that things are different from what it was 5 years ago, 10 years ago, when we entered into the dating scene, I guess in our late teens, early 20s. Things have changed drastically. Can you just take us a bit on a journey of how the dating scene has changed? What are the main things that you feel have changed, let's say, through the past decade of the dating scene?
Oh, well, that's a very it's a complex one, based on the fact that obviously the world is not static. We're moving with the time. We're changing. There's a passage of time that has the various changes that you see even then. Back then, remember also the paradigm wasn't as different as now. You understand? Back then, women were not as independent as they are now. I'm saying back then, women were independent as they are now, and the modems within love is transacted have also changed. I mean, we didn't have social media back then. Now, social media, things that have actually changed that basically make decade a bit different from the current time. But what must never change, even if they've changed, is what we transact of love must not then change. We don't have a reason to then live within our minds and say, because time changed, we might transact love differently. The whole concept of love stay the same. It can never be tarnished or tainted because that is infallible.
So interesting answer there. You speak about the times have changed, but love hasn't changed. Someone might ask, what is love? Yeah, because people are defining love through the different generations. Love wears different hats or different meanings for different people. And I know, I mean, you're not going to give us like a concise description or dictionary definition of what love is. But for someone who's just wondering, I don't even know what love is right now. So, and you speak about not losing it. What is love or the energy of love?
Okay. Remember, love is within an individual and becomes comprehensive when it's acted out. So it is within and it's expressed outwardly. So in layman terms, this is how I define what love is. Love is laying your life down for somebody, That to me is what my understanding of love is, having to allow somebody to, being a bridge that somebody can walk on from a place of obscurity to a place of relevance, having to not just look at things from your own point of view and assume that the other person decodes what you're saying based on what you're doing. But the moment you become conscious of the fact that it's about what you give and not what you necessarily get, then you have begun the process of being relatable when it comes to giving love.
Okay. So main points I gathered, you spoke about love being essentially sacrificing, love being giving more than it is receiving. Would you say, though, that the times that we live in support this notion? I mean, in an era where I suppose it's always been whereby, you're encouraged to have a list to say, I want a partner that is A, B, C, D, E. I want a partner that has A, B, C, D, E. It almost seems, love has become a bit of the opposite of what you're saying, whereby it's about what am I getting? If this person has 1, 2, 3, it means he can give me or she can give me 1, 2, 3, whether it be a sense of stability, a sense of financial accomplishment, a sense of fulfillment one way or another. And that's not just limited to the physical or to material wealth. Someone could say, I want someone who's got innate characters that are so. Also, people are saying, I want someone who looks a specific way, who's tall, who's dark, who's short, who's thick, who's slender. Do those things matter? And do they deviate from what you just said to say love is about giving? Now that you have to give, but yet that our definition of love is all about seeking or wanting rather than saying, what am I giving?
In the realist sense, because we are natural human beings, we have preferences based on the things that shape the way we think. For instance, there is a notion that slender or curvy is the it, not based on a internal influence, but it's based on external influence. Social media having to can you hear me? I think I had a network glitch there. So the influence is not really internal. The influence is not really internal, but external. It's what society says we should look at, that then, we should look for, that then has to define our palette, or define our method of choosing partners. But love is very invisible. It is invisible. Remember, it is in a realm of the supernatural. I always say when I stand on any podium that God is love, and because he is love, he gave, right? So what did he give? He gave his only begotten son to then express that love, because love is not love until you give it away. So there is nothing wrong with saying, I want somebody who's tall, I want somebody who's dark. It's fine. But a lot of people are spending their time in trying to look at the container and not the content. Because remember, because love is invisible, it has no way of protruding outwardly. You might have somebody who's very handsome, but unloving. You can have somebody very stunning and beautiful, and yet far away from it. And you can have somebody not so good looking, but is able to interpret love and give it away. So at the end of the day, you realize that what we see outwardly has limited us in reaching out to the actual reality of what love is. It's an invisible force. It's unseen. It is in a realm of the supernatural, but we tap into it via our energies. You understand? So it has to have nothing to do with how somebody looks like. I'll give you an example. God doesn't look at the face, because God doesn't really identify with faces, but he looks at the heart. So he's basically saying, I give you love because I'm an invisible being. I'm giving it to you via your spirit. I'm giving it to you via your heart. So I don't look at how you look. How you define beautiful, how you define handsome is based on the world. It's a standard, a system that somebody said you must be this to be handsome, you must be this to be beautiful. But all these are actually not in essence important when it comes to finding a partner. It is when one begins to open themselves up, to have what you call emotional interaction, something deeper than what somebody sees. Something mental, something innate, something emotionally invoking. You understand? So something internally evocative, things that are beyond what you see. So the moment we move away from how a person looks like, we might actually then open our minds and open ourselves to the reality of experiencing love in its realist sense.
That's very very powerful. In that you really spoke to another point that we were getting to say that society also has influenced the idea of what a perfect partner is, a perfect male is, or a perfect female is. They've put out a picture alongside with the media to say that if you're not this height, if you're not this body shape, hourglass, or whatever it is, if you don't look a certain way, you almost don't qualify to be a person of interest, or a person that is desired to say, you know what, I would want to form a relationship with this person. Yet this is all false, of course, because this is a narrative that is pushed obviously on a wide range, on a bigger space in the media space, what we see on television. You're looking now, there are more adverts for so-called curvy women, so-called bigger women, or fuller figured women, where back then you never even saw a fuller figured woman on television. So the narrative is shifting, and what do women that are petite saying now? So if we put our expectations or our wants with regards to the physical, and we match it to what society is saying, we may miss out, because I'm sure there's just a handful of people who actually fit this so-called brief that has been said. And it's not to say that everyone has a palette for a specific kind of person, and this is mainly, of course, based also on physical appearance. Um, in the era of social media dating, we've had a lot of stories where a lot of couples have met on social media, be it on Facebook, on Instagram, on Twitter, more specifically on dating sites, which are specifically specialized for dating. Um, how does one differentiate themselves, Ray? Since if we, the outward shouldn't be like at the main. I mean, you should have a preference, it's fine, but it shouldn't be the only thing. But here you are, Mr. Calvin, on a dating app, and all you really see is a picture of this person, and a few words that describe them, which could even be a lie. How do you then position yourself to see beyond, or if I'm the one wanting to be on a dating app, or fish on, or be found on social media, how do I position myself so that I'm more than just a picture? I'm more than just a face. I'm more than just a figure. I'm more than just my height or my complexion. How do I allow people, or let them see deeper than what is, when we are in a technological age?
Remember, it has always been based on connection. Connections, connection, energy, um, vibrations. All these are things that are in. They're like social. They're basically like a network. I mean, let's say you are basically using MTN or Cell C, or there is a reception that allows your phone to pick up a network or to pick up a signal. It's invisible, yes, but your phone is designed to be able to pick it up. You understand? So it's the same thing with connection. Connection is like that. It is not really it that it. For instance, MTN doesn't really choose which device per se is eligible to get network. What actually allows the other gadget to get network is the reception. So it's the same system that governs human beings. There is something in you that you might not see, that you might not translate physically or tangibly, that is there from one person or the next, that brings them together, even if distance is a reality. At that moment, distance becomes nothing. It's not even a barrier at all, because there is a connection. So one gadget and the other were able to connect based on a similarity, based on homogeneity when it comes to the connection, what brings these two together. So when it's deeper like that, I'll give you an example. There are a lot of people that said, I spoke to somebody who was sitting down. Then when we met, I realized that he was sitting on a wheelchair. I freaked out. And I always said, then it was never it, because your mind was conditioned in a way that you expected him to be fully a fully fledged human being. He is a human being, even if he's sitting on a wheelchair. But what you're failing to encapsulate is the fact that it's more than what you just see. You understand? So if you can go beyond what you see, remember, as a man thinketh in his heart, the idea is to use the heart more than the eye. It's good to use the eye. Yes, it's good to have preferences. It's good to have um, um, standards within which we feel we must adhere to. But for us to then get to a place where we walk in love fully, walk in love immensely, walk in love. Where we get to a place where love engulfs us, we need to then get to a place where we kill this and open this up. You understand? A lot of people are not married because their partners were not packaged the way they wanted to. Maybe the guy was short and she was tall, and that one was a love partner because of what you saw. You then limited yourself. You were not able to transcend into a realm that actually manufactures what we call love. A lot of people missed a lot of amazing opportunities because they switched this off and switched this on, and yet they had to switch this off and switch this one on. So with love, you must exercise the element of the heart. It's a heart issue. It has nothing to do with the eyes, though, because we are human beings, we are interactive. We see these beautiful things, we see these things around us. Let us not allow what we see to be a limitation of what we should experience. You don't experience via the eye, you experience via the heart.
Wow, that was really powerful. And I think it is really, Mr. Calvin, a true reflection, because a lot of times we put more emphasis on those physical attributes. Of course, like you're saying, we are physical beings, but essentially we're spiritual beings rather, but we're having a physical experience. So if we limit love, which is a emotion that one can't put in a container, you can't say this is love, you can't identify it. It's a energy, it's a spirit, if you want to call it. And so that always goes deeper than the senses, than the eyes, than the nose, than the mouth, than even the touch and the feeling. You have to tap into an area that is deeper than what you see. Yes, you may see what you like, but after that, you'll hear people saying there was no spark. And that is essentially what we're talking about, to say that what is that deeper element above and beyond what your senses can sense. To really understand the essence of love. And we're really saying this in order to just help bring us on par with today. You recently had an event called Njolo the Pandemic, and essentially it was about the challenges that people are going through in relationships. Why do you think that right now there's a higher divorce rate? um there's a higher divorce rate. Relationships are not working out as much. People used to be able to be in long-term relationships, building a long-term view, but relationships don't last. You hear someone said, my longest relationship is 6 months. Crazy. So what has changed, and what is it that we can bring back to bring that lasting thing, so that we don't say Mjolo ki pandemic, so that we don't say things like that, hey, Mjolo oraf, I won't say the N word, which is a swear word, but yeah, that, the relationships are really tough. What have you lost, or what do we need to do to help us get back to that place where marriages used to last, where relationships used to last, where people used to make it work? People don't anymore. What have we lost, and how can we bring it back, in your opinion?
I think we are basically messing with the formula that's working. Like I said, times may change, times will change, but love itself has to actually get better. So we need to then be able to translate love currently the way it was probably projected in, I mean, times immemorial. So I think for me, it is about finding self. Remember, you cannot give what you do not have. You know, you cannot receive what you don't understand. So the issue is the sender and the receiver. These two parties are very critical in the transaction of love. You know, if the one that you are with thinks other things are love and yet it's not, it'll be very you will always hit a brick wall, because the sender and the receiver are getting lost in translation. So it's very important to then create capacity within ourselves as individuals, to then be able to to give ourselves opportune moments that allow us to download the the authentic elements of what true love is all about. I'll give you an example. Uh, People are in love with, when you're going through whatever you're going through, let's say you are broken, it is very easy for you to receive love based on your current state of affairs. Because you are broken, somebody comes and tells you something that you feel is is soothing to your soul. It's very easy for you to then say, this is it, you know, because you are basically in a place of brokenness. You have not allowed yourself to heal. You've not allowed yourself to just, you know, to just to go through the pain, to go through the motion, and just be able to recollect and find yourself. So at that moment, you are at what you're feeling is good enough, and yet it's not it. So the idea is to get to a place where we ourselves as individuals create capacity to understand, or to comprehend this concept of love, so that when we give it out also to people that are receptive. Remember, the most disheartening thing about this era is the fact that there's a lot of information. A lot of information. I mean, we have social media, we've got, I don't know how many databases we have. We've got Facebook, we've got Instagram. I mean, there's a lot of things happening around us. So our idea or our view is being impaired by the information around us. We are not being able to sift out external information, so that we are able to then create a consensus that is actually real and true. So it's very difficult also to then understand all these things based on the information that is here. We've got a lot of it, but I still say you cannot give what you do not have, neither can you receive what you do not understand.
Absolutely, absolutely. You cannot give what you don't have. And I usually also say this when I'm, also doing my coaching, to say that we need to look from the inner, because as you quoted a scripture that I really love, and you said, from the abundance of the heart the mouth speaks, meaning that whatever is within you, whatever you are carrying, it is what you will give. And if you don't have it, you cannot give it. And I think a lot of people are battling with this concept, to say, why am I not getting love? I think we need to maybe start with self, like you're saying, to say, are you giving love? And who better to give this love to than to yourself first? Because if you fill yourself up, if you fill your cup first, whatever is the residue of that, you are able to then pour into someone else, or someone can come and drink from it. But a lot of times we're looking for this love, the validation, the connection, the need, whatever it is that is lacking within us. We think we find it in another partner. And that is really what also is the contributing factor for abusive relationships, where we feel the perpetrator first of all sees that this person needs this for me. If I give this person enough of this thing, I get them to where I want them to be, and I know that they want it so much that they won't leave because I'm giving it to them, albeit the dosage keeps reducing because the abusive behavior ends up superseding this very good quality. And it all boils down to self-love, like they say, to say, if you don't have enough love to say that I will not accept this kind of behavior, then it means you will continue to accept it until you can love yourself enough to take yourself out of that situation. What are some of the tips you can give the people that are listening that they can work on within themselves? You really spoke a powerful statement. It starts with self. Yeah. Okay, I think we got cut off there, my network. But we're back. I'll just edit it out. You can hear me, right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So let me actually start the question from what are the tips that you can give someone who is, struggling with relationships, who keeps saying, I keep attracting the same kind of person, a person who's not loving enough, who's not caring enough, who's this, who's that. And please don't mention, relationships being our mirrors. That's a separate question. I want us to deal with that separately. But in this question, I want you to really give us what are some of the key things that I, as an individual, can work on for myself, for self, so that I can then attract or give this love that I want. Just maybe 2 or 3 key points that you can say, you know what, these are things that one should be working on a continuous basis in order to attract or be attracted to the right sort of partner.
Okay. So number one, obviously, it's working on self. Self is broad. There's a lot of entities that go within the concept of self. You understand? You need to understand that you do not get joy from the next person. Don't give the next person a role that is not theirs to give you joy. Joy is what you basically work on within self. Remember, there's a difference between joy and happiness. Joy is perennial. Happiness is, happiness is conditional. I will give you gifts, you'll be happy, but you might be happy without joy. So it's very important to understand that. So people get into relationships and give other people a mammoth task of having to make them joyful. It's impossible, So it's very important to then get in touch with self, create capacity to receive these things. I always say, this is what I always give as a solution to everybody. If you want to understand love, if you want to, I'm going to use computer science terminology. If you want to decrypt the secrets of love, be in a relationship with the institutor of love. God is the one who is the institute of love. So sometimes, not even sometimes, all the time, if you are in sync with God, He will teach you a lot of things like forgiveness. Forgiveness is key in relationships. You have to forgive self before you forgive the next person. A lot of us get into relationships broken. We feel like we have a point to prove. We blame ourselves so much for giving our time, effort, money, sacrifices to people that were not able to receive what we gave. So before we forgive the next person, we must learn to forgive ourselves. Very important. Number one, you start with self. Number two, forgive yourself. Forgive yourself for the choices that you made. Forgive yourself for the past hurts that it's not important. It's not really beneficial for you to say, but I was wrong. But I was right, I was wrong. At this point, it's not important. Even if you were wrong, or even if it's no longer, it's neither here nor there. But the most important thing is forgiving yourself. So the third thing, when you have discovered self, when you've forgiven self, it is then important to try and redirect your mind from I mean from the things that were literally limiting yourself prior to dealing with yourself. What am I saying? It's very important to chase ambition, the things that you've always wanted to do. I call those things purpose. Now, this is what's going to blow your mind. 102% of the time, your partner is standing at the door of your purpose. Your purpose is it is what God put you on earth to fulfill. So for as long as your partner is not within the confines of your purpose, I do not care how much fuel you put. If a car doesn't have engine, it will never move. Even if it's a Ferrari, even if it's a Rolls Royce, as beautiful as it is with beautiful wheels, for as long as there is no engine, I don't care how much fuel you put into it, it will never move. So it's the same thing with purpose. So remember, I'll say this I'll try and say this in 2 minutes. It excites me because I'm actually writing a book about this. It excites me a lot. Okay. So the Bible gives in, because I deal with men, so I basically talk to men most of the time. So the Bible says, husbands, love your wives as church. Then he says, wives, submit unto your husbands as unto the Lord. Okay, so what this basically means, women cannot really interpret love. The people that are able to interpret love are men. So men give love, but because women generally, as men, we were we were given the mandate to lead. We just don't lead at work. We lead everywhere, even in the concept of love. So when a man gives you love, women don't really, when a woman says, because men always say, I want respect, right? So I give a woman love. So automatically when a woman gives me love back, when it comes back to me, it is no longer love, it is called respect. So when I say to you, I love you, when you give me all these things that I feel are standard with being loved, to you it is love, but to me it is called respect. What am I saying? It only happens when you are within the confines of your purpose. Purpose says, at that door, when you discover as a man, for instance, that this is the one, God will give you a helpmeet. He says, I will give you, he who finds a wife finds a good thing and obtains favor. So God says, Calvin, find a woman. If you find the right one, you will find favor. So what is basically trying to say, find purpose. At the door of your purpose, you will find it, and she will unlock for you a destiny that is phenomenal. So if you are within the confines of purpose, the partner that you're with will give you joy all the days of your life. You will quarrel, you will have fights, but your resolution strategy is going to be impeccable. They are going to give into your wealthy place and not take from your wealthy place. You understand what I mean? So at the end of the day, it's very important now. The third point is discover your purpose. This is separate from your love. Don't find love first. Find self. Find purpose. At the door of your purpose, right at the door, your helper or your helpmate or the one who has to forward your generational blessing will find you at the door of your purpose.
Sure, that is loaded. That is so loaded. You said so much there. Sure. Purpose, finding self, understanding the masculine and those physical and the feminine energies and how they work, and really understanding purpose as to design, as a male, as a female, and how that really works and feeds into each other. And I'm challenging our listeners and our viewers back home to themselves go on a journey of understanding the difference in the design, between the man and the woman and what their functions. And I think that will help us also draw a line between patriarchy, also a line between really there was a difference when man and a woman were created, and what are those fundamental, and how we can function optimally in both roles without it being about task or menial things that people have sort of brought a woman is, a man is too. Indoda must, umfazi must. Those are petty. Those are also informed by society, different generations. What indoda must do here in South Africa is different to what indoda must do in India, for example, or in Asia. So it really is about culture, it's about upbringing, it's about socialization, and we really should try to run away from that. So when I'm saying to you, investigate what the functions of a man and a woman is. Look beyond a woman should cook or a man should do the garden. Those are immaterial. It's such a very primary, minute, I could even say childish way of looking at the different energies of the female and the male, just understanding that there are many books out there that you can read. One that I can think of off the top of my head is Miles Monroe's Understanding the Power and Purpose of a Woman, and I think he's got also Yes, and one of the other books for men is Understanding the Power and Purpose of Men. So, just some books material that our viewers can watch. Let's just round off the conversation and quickly talk about relationships being our mirrors. Often we've heard of this, often we've also maybe seen this, I'm not sure, whereby you see the prevalent character, or usually it's a negative character in your partner that is usually a mirror to the character that you are actually struggling with. For an example, you might find that you feel or you think that your partner is very selfish, they're very inconsiderate, they're not thoughtful enough, they just do a lot of selfish things, and you'll see the small things like, they will bring themselves a spoon and not bring you a spoon. Small things like that. But oftentimes it's a mirror. If you actually look at the man in the mirror, you realize that you are also actually selfish, because you will not recognize a quality that you are not or that you don't inherit. Is that true? And how can we then begin to shift that so that we can begin attracting, I guess, the kind of partner that we feel we deserve or we feel that we want?
In geography, there's what you call convergence zones and subduction zones. So convergence, subduction zones are when two plates collide, forcing the weaker one to bow and the stronger one to remain, So I feel it happens like that in relationships. Usually when we started the conversation earlier, I spoke about having to lay your life down, Sometimes it's really not about, because I think there are men that date women that are alpha female, women that are very strong, women that are, we once had a conversation with the gentleman in one of the events that we had. The title of the event was, the title of actually the topic that we discussed was, how can you handle an independent woman without feeling emasculated? So the issue has not really been about having to prove concepts and elements of power, elements of control. But I think when we take a decision to lay ourselves down, it doesn't mean we're weak. It doesn't mean we're weak. Like, I normally speak to men that don't raise their hands to beat women. It has nothing to do with power. Actually, you are powerful by restraining yourself. So power is in restraint more than anything else. So I think that's one thing that we need to try and come to terms with. To say, sometimes when you restrain yourself, when you just take a deep breath, when something that there are people that can't clean after themselves, There are people, because remember, these things become accustomed. It becomes a culture. It's how other people grew up. Other people we are never, this is the beauty about relationships. We cannot be the same. But in the event that we are similar in like the question that you asked me, having one's act, one's deeds becoming a reflection of who I am individually, it then becomes a call towards change, towards subduction, towards having to. Humility is power. Getting lower is power. Restraint is power. And having to try and create an environment that allows you to see more than their limitations is also power. Having to realize that there's more to this individual than him failing to clean up clean after himself is also power. Because remember also, because you're in a relationship means relational. Relational means working together. You're working together towards a common goal. The common goal is having coexistence and cohabitation that allows you to flourish, that allows you to prosper, and that allows you to be happy. So one way or the other, the positive will eventually absorb the negative. But I don't think those are mammoth issues that can really bring a relationship in demise or downfall, in disrepute. No, I don't think so. But I just feel it's also very important to then just get to a place where one's positive attributes or one's propensity to restrain themselves is able to bring the other one, up to the pedestal as well.
Thank you so much. That's so powerful. It's all about restraint. I remember listening, I think it was TD Jakes, where he said that, the fact that we have electricity is not enough, but what makes the electricity effective is the ability to restrain itself in order to function within whatever object it is powering up. So, you need certain number of watts to power up a kettle. So imagine if you took the watts that were needed for powering up a whole factory and you use the same to power up a kettle, the kettle would simply explode because restraint is important in order to function properly. So thank you for that. And as we close for today, really, it's been amazing. We've learned so much. The discussion was actually deep, and I'm hoping that the listeners and the viewers will go back home and begin to, take notes and write down, and above all, start with self and really dig within self and see how they can develop themselves. Sometimes you're always looking at the solution outward, whereas the solution is inward. What are your parting words you can say to singles or to people in relationships with regards to just love and relationships, or maybe to those that are still looking? Just in a few seconds, what are your parting words?
Love is a beautiful thing. Love is amazing. I think it's one thing that makes the world go around. Love makes the world go around. It's a beautiful phenomenon. So I feel we as individuals need to get to a place where we just create capacity to receive that love and give it out. We need to also understand that we're different, but in our differences, we can always create zones and regions of commonality. We can create common ground. You understand? The beauty is the differences, where you appreciate the fact that the pub else next door is cooked differently from the pub that you grew up eating. And you're like, what? Is it the same pub? It's different. And yet it's the same thing, but it's just done differently. So I think tolerance, discovering self, that I will never overemphasize that point. We need to get to a place where we find self. We get closer to purpose, because for as long as we jump from one relationship to the other, we are not doing justice to ourselves. In actual fact, we are basically dimming the light within ourselves. So when we meet the right person, eventually we have no light to give because the bulb is out, the light is out. So the idea about discovering self is you are trying to keep yourself within the premise that I know I will find a better part of me elsewhere. I will find, they usually say in layman terms, I'll find my better half. You know, it is very important. But I'll give you this before we call it a day. So I'm generally a petite guy, around size 32. So let's say I get into an accident and I break my ribs. Hypothetically speaking, if they had to replace my ribs, hypothetically, just a metaphor, hypothetically speaking, they'll have to find somebody with with a cartilage size as mine, as in that person should be my frame, so that, number one, the rib doesn't become too big or too short. Let me show you. If the rib is too big, if they sew it up, it's going to give me discomfort because it's going to hurt my flesh from within because it's too long. If it's too short, it will still hurt me because it doesn't fit accurately with the others. It will also give me discomfort. Whichever way, I'm still going to hurt. What am I saying? If God says my wife or a guy's wife or a man's partner is, rather I'm speaking to men in this instance because I'm biased towards speaking to men, you know, it basically means if you get a rib that's not the size of your cartilage size, it will give you discomfort. If you get anybody who is not from you, they will definitely give you discomfort. They will always hurt you. They will always cause you pain because they are not from you. So the issue goes back to purpose. Let's discover purpose. Let's discover self, so that we find the rib that fits into the cartilage size perfectly, so that we don't get discomfort, so we don't get pain, so we don't get agony, so that we just enjoy giving and receiving love.
Wow, 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 wow. That was just amazing. Thank you so much for those parting words. And we appreciate you coming through today and gracing us with your presence. And of course, people can find you on social media on your page called The League of Honor, and they will be able to contact you there. Thank you so much for joining us today for dissecting this very intense, very multifaceted topic of relationships. You really have helped us to dig into it a little bit more. And of course, we will be digging more into the topic as the weeks go. Just as I said, we started the month of February, so we've got 3 more weeks to go, or is it 2, with the month of February, where we have speakers coming through that will keep discussing this topic, and hopefully at the end of it we will have a bit more light to shed, and perhaps feel a bit more better about our situations, or rather make better decisions regarding love. Above all, what our speaker said today, let us learn to give love. Love is about giving. Give it out freely, so that you can also receive it. Thank you so much for joining us tonight. This is Conversation with Ms. B, and I will see you again next time.